What would you do if you were innocent, but the only way to stay out of prison was to plead guilty? That's not a trick question. It's a real choice tens of thousands of people make every year in the United States. Not because they are guilty, but because the system gives them no other way out. This is the story of Eric Daniels, a teenager arrested, pressured, and pushed into a guilty plea for a crime he didn't commit. He thought honesty would save him, but he was wrong. This is the plea deal trap, where the truth doesn't matter as much as the paperwork. In 2019, 17-year-old Eric Daniels was walking home from a friend's house in Chicago when police stopped him. Just minutes earlier, there had been a robbery at a nearby convenience store where a man in a hoodie, about Eric's height and build, had threatened the cashier with a weapon before running away. Eric didn't have a weapon, and he didn't have any stolen goods, but he did have a hoodie, and he was black, alone, and near the scene. The store clerk couldn't be sure of the suspect's identity, but police arrested Eric anyway. What began as just a few questions turned into hours of interrogation, and hours became an overnight hold. Imagine being 17, sitting in a cold interrogation room, accused of something you didn't do, while watching adults treat you as if you were already guilty. Eric tried to explain, but his words felt pointless. Police wrote down statements that twisted his answers, and he didn't fully understand his rights because no one stopped to explain them. To the officers, they had a suspect that fit the description, but for Eric, it was the start of a nightmare he couldn't escape. At first, Eric believed the situation would blow over because he hadn't done anything, and he expected that a lawyer, some security footage, or a witness would clear it up. But instead of protection, what he got was a public defender juggling dozens of cases and a prosecutor offering a deal: plead guilty to second-degree robbery and get 6 months probation, or go to trial and risk up to 15 years. Why was the deal so tempting? Because in court, the odds weren't in his favor. A single witness claimed he looked like the robber, he had no solid alibi, and he didn't have money for a private attorney. A jury trial could drag on for months, and those months would likely mean sitting in jail, unable to attend school, see friends, or move forward with life. The system wasn't built to protect innocence, it was built to move cases. Eric's lawyer told him it was too risky to fight. "They'll use your silence against you," he warned. "Your record will be clean after probation. Just take the deal." But how do you keep fighting when even your own lawyer says the fight isn't worth it? Eric was scared and confused, and though he knew he was innocent, innocence didn't seem to matter. So, like thousands of others every year, he signed his name. Eric went home, but nothing in his life was the same. He now had a record. Job applications immediately flagged his name. Schools hesitated to accept him, and even his family began to wonder what really happened. Worst of all, the real robber was never caught. Months later, the same store was robbed again using the same method and matching the same description. But it didn't matter because Eric had already taken the fall. Legally, the case was closed, but the fallout lingered in every part of his life. Friends whispered behind his back, teachers treated him differently, and potential employers looked at him like he was lying. It didn't matter that he had never been proven guilty in court. The guilty plea alone was enough to stain his name permanently. Eric carried that weight into every application, every interview, and every conversation where someone brought up that charge. He wasn't the criminal, but he was branded like one. Eric's case isn't unusual. In fact, over 90% of criminal convictions in the United States come from plea deals rather than trials. Think about that. 9 out of 10 people never get their case in front of a jury. Plea bargains were originally designed to ease the load on courts, but they have turned into shortcuts for quick convictions. Prosecutors stack charges to intimidate defendants into pleading guilty, while public defenders are underpaid and overwhelmed. Trials are risky, expensive, and slow, so even innocent people find themselves cornered. The choice is, take the deal and walk away with a record, or gamble your future in a trial that could destroy you. And the gamble is never fair. If you take your case to trial and lose, you could face decades in prison, even if the evidence against you is weak. If you accept the deal, you keep your freedom, but you carry the permanent scar of a guilty plea. That isn't justice. That's negotiation under duress, and it is a negotiation thousands of people lose every single day. Technically, the plea process is legal, but ethically, it is a murky and dangerous practice. How many guilty pleas are really just fear-driven decisions? How many records exist that never should have? And what happens when society begins assuming guilt simply because the paperwork says so? Eric Daniels was never proven guilty in a court of law, but his life was changed forever. In a system built for speed, the truth doesn't always get a seat at the table. This is double-dipped, where the line between guilt and innocence isn't drawn by facts, but by deals. If this case shocked you, subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that blur the line between legal and wrong. And comment below, would you take the deal if it meant keeping your freedom, even if it meant giving up your innocence? Let us know, because next week the system gets even darker.